You're watching the Democratic primary debate for New York's 16th congressional district.
And welcome back to Debate Night in New York. Let's get right back to the questions, and we're beginning with the topic of reparations, gentlemen. So for decades, activists have pushed the United States federal government to pay reparations for slavery and racial discrimination. In our most recent poll, take a look right here. We asked Democratic voters in the district if the U.S. should pay reparations for slavery and racial discrimination by making cash payments to the descendants of enslaved people. As you can see, 47% said yes, 35% said no. Mr. Latimer, do you support reparations for slavery and racial discrimination? You have 60 seconds here.
I think the important thing here is to have a serious discussion about it with people who can come back with a plan. The concept of reparations we've shown already when the United States gave resources to those families, descendants of Japanese Americans that were incarcerated during World War II. So we have a model of reparations having been done already in our experience. But this is a serious issue. It involves a serious amount of money. And I think that what New York State is doing is the national model to follow. There is a bill out there which a number of legislators support, which would open the door to that type of study, estimate the costs and how that would be funded. Mr. Bowman has a bill for $14 trillion of reparations. That represents 2 full years of the national budget, which runs about $7 trillion a year, a little over that. And that is not a serious bill. That's a bill that has 1 or 2 co-sponsors, has no chance of making any progress. So we can either take the topic and we can put intelligent thought into it and come back with a proposal that we can discuss, debate, and hopefully implement, or we can try to get debater points and gin people up the way he has done it.
Just to be clear, yes or no, you support reparations?
I said yes, but I support it as a process that involves analysis and discussion.
Understood, Mr. Latimer. Thank you. Mr. Bowman, you just heard him mention that $14 trillion, which you support in reparations, which is about 3 times more than the U.S. collects in taxes in just 1 year, Mr. Bowman. So how would you pay for that? You have 60 seconds.
Well, you mentioned that activists have been fighting for decades to put forward a reparations bill. It hasn't just been activists. It was led by John Conyers, may he rest in peace, in Congress, and it's been picked up by Sheila Jackson Lee. At the end of my second term, we had 218 co-sponsors for the bill, and it made it out of committee for the first time ever, but it didn't get a floor vote on the House. And that's what's been so frustrating and disappointing. When it comes to other communities, the black community continues to feel left behind. And we continue to feel marginalized and isolated as if our issues don't matter. There has been much research on the impact of slavery, Jim Crow, lynching, mass incarceration, police brutality, underfunded schools, and the impact on the black community. He doesn't know that because he's never taken an anti-racist approach or has never done any work to deal with structural racism in Westchester County. That's why blacks and Latinos continue to be left behind under his administration.
Mr. Bowman, I heard your answer here, but 15 seconds. How would you pay for the $14 trillion was the question.
If we had corporations contribute their fair share, which they currently are not doing. If we had the wealthy elite contribute their fair share, I support President Biden's proposal to raise taxes, to tax the wealthiest at 40%. He does not support President Biden's proposal. If we did that, we could pay out the $14 trillion over time.
Okay, Mr. Bowman, I see you have your hand raised. Mr. Latimer, you have 15
seconds. Yeah, I think once again,
rebuttal.
Jamaal is going off the deep end trying to estimate what I say. Let me say what I believe. And there's so many of these things to try to recap. The first thing is we've done a lot to deal with the problems of racial inequality. We've joined an organization called GARE, which is implementing department by department systemic efforts to try to undo racism. I need a little more time to be able to defend myself.
I'll give you an additional 15 seconds, then I got to give Mr. Bowman as well. So you have 15 seconds.
And what's also important to understand is that I have been the most progressive county executive in this state in dealing with these issues. He blithely says how I haven't done anything. He has been good at talk, but not good at action. We have implemented action in Westchester County. I have major African Americans in positions of great importance in this county, which he blithely ignores.
Gonna have to leave it there, Mr. Bowman. You got 30 seconds.
When did you join GEAR, by the way?
We joined it 2 years ago. You should have had a little better research to check it up. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Pay more attention to the specifics.
Yeah, because when you look at the impact of racial justice during his administration, there is no impact.
That
the people in the district know that, and everyone knows.
Stay out there.
He's giving a rebuttal.
And everyone knows my record on fighting for racial justice, first as an educator, middle school principal, and now as a member of Congress. If we do not deal with the issue of racial injustice, we do not have a democracy.
Okay, Mr. Bowman, thank you. We have to move on to the next topic. Mr. Latimer, and Henry has that.
We're going to talk about border security and the migrant crisis. In the last 2 years, more than 200,000 migrants have come to New York, almost all seeking asylum. New York City and state have spent billions of dollars assisting these men, women, and children with food and housing. Mr. Bowman, at one point last year, you had a message for the president on this issue. Let's all take a listen.
We need the president to take a leadership role, because here's the thing. Democrats are looking bad right now in New York State, and that's unacceptable.
So that was last August, but just a few weeks ago, Mr. Biden took some executive action to limit the number of migrants who can claim asylum at the southern border. Mr. Bowman, here's the question. Do you agree with the executive action, and is this too little too late from the president? 60 seconds.
Not too little too late. I'm concerned about us taking a conservative approach to the border. So I'm concerned about the executive action. When people are coming here, they're coming seeking asylum. They're seeking safety. Our country has always been a place where people could come and seek asylum. What we have to begin to do is deal with the root causes of mass migration. I visited Guatemala and Honduras to understand what's happening there with the indigenous people. And what I learned was Western corporations have destroyed the ecosystem there and the economies there, including the U.S. And that's why people are coming here, because they are desperate. And so we should welcome them with love and humanity. We also need to make sure we're investing in our own economy and helping those who have been marginalized throughout American history, which unfortunately we still haven't done enough about.
Mr. Latimer, do you agree with President Biden's executive order, and is this too little too late?
Well, it's a step in the right direction, but the real solution has to come from legislative action, and a bipartisan group met to try to work through the different issues that are involved. There does need to be additional border security. There needs to be a restructuring of the asylum system. There needs to be some path for citizenship. There also has to be some ability to control the amount of numbers that come into the country. And what we've dealt with in Westchester County is a compassionate way, unlike the counties around us. We've worked with Mayor Adams in some migrant placements, but when the Texas governor decides to send excessive numbers to New York and none to other states, that's a misrepresentation of what has to be done nationwide. So we need greater action. My opponent has gone to the border, but he hasn't done anything about his site to the border, and he shows compassion when he speaks about these things, but there hasn't been any proposed legislation that would change this around. So he's present at the border, but he's missing in action in Washington, where he needs to be focused on what are the legislative responses. That's where this problem is going to be dealt with legislation that fixes these problems.
Mr. Bowman, 30 seconds to respond, sir.
Yeah, so there are leaders in Congress like Adriano Espaillat who are leading on this issue, and I'm a co-sponsor on every piece of legislation that solves the issue of making sure our migrant brothers and sisters are well taken care of. So that's just false. We've worked locally with many who have come from New York City, partnering with Neighbors Link, West Hab, Mayor Nancy Kaboulian, Pace University, and many others to help the migrants in Westchester County with their paperwork so that they could get on a path to getting a Social Security number, green card, working, and contributing to the economy.
Yeah, I'm listening to you both talk about this issue about Westchester County. So let's go there for a second, right? Mr. Latimer, last August, when migrants began staying in hotels, you said the county could not afford to put them up and couldn't handle school-aged children. And I want you to take a listen to that.
Our resources are not sufficient to provide room and board for individuals who are here. That is why New York City is paying for that while they're here.
So I heard your answer previously,
Yes.
Mr. Latimer. Should the people of Westchester be bearing more of the burden when it comes to the New York migrant crisis? 60 seconds here.
The important issue is, should the federal government be paying for this in its entirety? Mayor Adams has made the case that New York City can't afford to do this either. So I said nothing different than what Mayor Adams has done. Westchester County's resources, the property taxation and the sales taxation that we have, cannot possibly provide enough money for an influx of those migrants. What we have done is worked with them humanitarianly. We've worked with those organizations and we provided the public health component. But were the Texas governor to drop off 100,000 folks in Westchester County, we wouldn't be able to handle it, nor could Bergen, nor could Fairfield County. This demands federal money to be able to address this issue. And it's a mistake to look at the local governments, whether the city of New York or any other local government, and expect us to do that which has to be done at the federal level.
Okay, Mr. Bowman, same question coming to you. Should the people of Westchester, listening to your answer before, you said they were taking some in, be bearing more of the burden when it comes to the New York migrant crisis? You have
I think the
60
burden
seconds.
needs to be shared shared across the country. Governor Abbott didn't just send buses to New York, he sent buses to all of the black Democratic mayors across the country, which was racist and very political, and has caused this to explode into the issue that it is. It needs to be shared across the country, not just in Westchester County.
Thank you. And we're talking about New York City, right? So part of this district includes the Bronx, which means you will need to work very closely with Mayor Eric Adams, who is up for re-election next year. So, Mr. Bowman, does Mayor Adams deserve a second term, or would you look to support a new candidate? You have 60 seconds.
Well, I think that remains to be seen. I've been very concerned with the mayor continuously underfunding public education. Public education needs to receive more funding, not less. We brought in billions of dollars to the New York City public education system through the American Rescue Plan. I was vice chair of the Ed and Labor Committee when we negotiated that bill and marked up that bill and passed that bill with a focus on equity. So I'm very frustrated by billions coming into the city, billions coming into the school district, but we're still cutting funds in the school district. We also worked with Mayor Adams and the New York City Department of Education on a program called Every Child and Family Known, which targets children in shelters in the Bronx to make sure schools are working holistically to meet their needs. And so I want to see a lot more from the mayor as it relates to education, as it relates to childcare, as it relates to affordable housing, as it relates to workforce development.
Yes or no here? Does he deserve a second term? Yes or no?
Well, it's not a yes or no question. Okay. I got to give you, the layers of it.
Mr. Bowman, thank you. Mr. Latimer, same question to you. Does Mayor Adams deserve a second term, or would you look to support a new candidate?
In fairness, my support as a Westchester resident for the mayor of New York City is irrelevant. The voters, no, I'm answering your question. I'm not answering the way you want it, but I'm answering it the correct way. I'm not a voter in that area, so I don't sit in judgment on how Mayor Adams is doing. We work with the Adams administration. We worked with the de Blasio administration previously. We have certain transportation issues that we work with the city on. Certainly as a congressman, going into Wakefield, going into Co-op City, dealing with Community Board 12, Community Board 10, 47th Precinct Council, 45th Precinct Council, I would intend to be engaged in that portion of New York City that I would have. But the New York City voters are going to have one of these opportunities, I'm sure, at WPIX to have any number of potential candidates, including the mayor, and they will make the decision of what happens in the future of New York City.
Mr. Latimer, thank you. Henry has the next question.
Our next question concerns the fentanyl crisis, which unfortunately is still tearing through many communities in our state and in our country. The CDC says overdose deaths have topped more than 100,000 each of the last 2 years. 3 out of every 4 are blamed on fentanyl. Safe injection sites, those are places that supply clean needles and, if needed, the life-saving drug naloxone, are seen by some as a way to combat this epidemic. Mr. Latimer, starting with you, should Westchester County and the Bronx have legal safe injection sites like we've seen in Manhattan recently? 60 seconds.
I would not move to that standard at this point. I think we've done in Westchester County the ability to advance those types of curative drugs that would help people who are suffering overdose. We put them in as many different public places as we can to deal with the outgrowth of fentanyl. Now, I noticed that the Democratic Socialists of America, which my opponent was very anxious to get the support of, believes we should legalize fentanyl. I don't know what he believes. DSA believes it should be legalized. I don't think it should be legalized. I think it's a very dangerous thing. The response that we have from the federal government should be much more robust in helping local governments be able to fight this scourge. We have both from the police side, the mental health, and the public health side efforts, but it's easy to be drowned when you have very powerful forces that see the money to be made in advancing drugs and working across state lines, much less over jurisdictional lines like a county.
Thank you, Mr. Latimer. Mr. Bowman, your response, but if you could, do you support legal safe injection sites in the district? 60 seconds.
I support legal safe injection sites in the district, yes. Shortly after being sworn in 2021, a 14-year-old girl in Yonkers OD'd on fentanyl. And I had a chance to meet with the mom and the families, and I had a chance to attend a gathering of families that really sounded the alarm on the issue of fentanyl and opioids in our district. It remains a crisis. It remains a crisis in Yonkers. It remains a crisis in Mount Vernon. It remains a crisis in the Bronx, the areas with the most concentrated poverty. And we need a holistic approach to dealing with this issue. we have helped to create the Youth Heal program with the Westchester Youth Shelter to make sure those who are in an alternative to incarceration program have the support they need for mental health and substance abuse. And we've worked with Judge Rice as well with the Court Innovation Project to get them $1.6 million to support those who are struggling with this as well. Our entire focus has been on mental health and substance abuse and the social determinants of health.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. If you'd like one final point on this important topic, Mr. Latimer, 15 seconds.
We just allocated $4.1 million to various nonprofit organizations to help deal with the opioid crisis. This came from State Attorney General Letitia James' successful litigation. But let me tell you, the problem is not just in Mount Vernon and Yonkers. It's in Eastchester. It's in Harrison. It's in Tarrytown. It's in Elmsford. It's in every community of Westchester County. The focus has to be universal, not just targeted.
And Mr. Bowman, if you'd like 15 seconds to put a button on this, it's just an important topic. We want to make sure you have time.
Well, as the county executive, he has the power to set the agenda for the county. There's been no agenda in dealing with the fentanyl crisis, no agenda in dealing with mental health, no agenda in dealing with racial justice, no agenda in dealing with the issue of poverty, no agenda in dealing with the issue of affordable housing. He's been the executive. He can't do more in Congress because he's working with 535 people. He's the executive right now. Why isn't more being done? Where's his leadership?
Now, that's more than 15 seconds. I'd
Yes,
love to
I
have
understand. 30 more seconds, and then, gentlemen, we're leaving this topic.
Go
ahead.
Jamaal has no idea what the county has done. All he knows is the county executive is running against him, so he wants to say negative things. We've increased our mental health spending by $35 million over my term in office. We've spent quite a bit of additional money on mental health and opioid programs. We've created a mental health crisis response team, $6 million a year, that came out of our police reform initiative, and we're the only county in New York State to do this. If I wasn't running for for Congress against him, he would probably be pretty happy with what we're doing, but now he has to find fault where there is no fault.
We're moving on, gentlemen. We're going to talk about former President Trump, so let's just keep rolling here. Last month in New York City, he was convicted of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, as the world knows by now. Next month, he will face sentencing and faces up to 4 years in prison for each count, though it's widely expected he will not do quite that much time. Mr. Bowman, beginning with you, is prison an appropriate sentence for the former president? And how long should he serve? 60 seconds.
Yes. I'm not a legal expert, so I don't know exactly how long he should serve. But yes, prison is appropriate for the former president. The former president incited an insurrection. It was my third day in office. I was in my office watching the Capitol be attacked. And as I tried to exit the building to leave my office, we were locked down for several hours as a result of this attack. President Trump is leading a MAGA, Republican, racist revolution in our country. And my opponent is funded mostly by MAGA Republicans. He claims to be a Democrat, but he is funded by racist MAGA Republicans who support taking your voting rights, taking your abortion rights, gutting affirmative action, and who are insurrectionists. These are the people funding his campaign. That's why the television sets and mailboxes are bombarded with ads, because of Republican racist MAGA Trump money.
So, Mr. Latimer, 30 seconds to respond to the allegation, and then I do want to get your thoughts on Mr. Trump as well.
I want to do Mr. Trump first, and then I'll respond to
30 seconds to respond to
his
talk about
spiritual aide, Mr. Bowman, who acts like Mr. Trump every chance he gets.
60
I leave it to Alvin Bragg to determine what the proper sentence is, and also the legal system. The judge has operated very fairly in this case. What I'd love to see is them make Mr. Trump come and before the courtroom and apologize for his behavior. That would be even greater than putting him in jail. But, we'll see how that plays out. As far as the funding, he's been funded by dark sources all across the country. He has more money from outside the district. My money comes from within inside the district. All of these mega donors that he talks about, they lied about a fundraiser that I did with Larchmont Democrats and tried to turn it into a MAGA fundraiser because the husband of the woman who sponsored the event is a Republican. So he's been singing this tune. This is his campaign people telling him, you better knock George Latimer down. Everybody knows him. Everybody knows him and likes him. Let's knock him down, and you better do it quick. He wasn't even a Democrat until he moved to Westchester in 2016. He wasn't even a registered Democrat in 2008. I've been a Democrat, and I've fought Democratic principles for 35 years in office.
Mr. Latimer, you've both given as good as you've gotten there. I'm moving over to Dan.
We're going to keep on the topic of politics and talk about President Biden now. Senator Chris Coons, who co-chairs the Biden 2024 campaign, just said that the president has, quote, diminished energy, but remains, quote, sharp and commanding. And the Wall Street Journal published a much-discussed article titled "Behind Closed Doors, Biden Shows Signs of Slipping." Mr. Latimer, is President Biden limiting the Democratic Party's potential to flip or maintain seats down ballot in New York and nationwide? You have 60 seconds here.
President Biden is our standard bearer. He will be the Democratic nominee for president. I support him. I will work on his behalf. And I haven't been in any rooms with him, so I'm not exactly sure where these other comments come from. I think there's an ageist argument out there which is offensive, in which somebody assumes because a person is of a certain age they aren't capable. His major opponent, Mr. Trump, is 4 years younger. That's hardly much difference. So I think that the focus that Democrats should have is on how do we make the strongest possible message of who we are as Democrats. I've proven as a county executive what that message is. It's a result-oriented message where we accomplish things across a wide range of activities. And I believe that President Biden has that message that he can sell and bring that to the American people. And I believe he will be successful with that message being delivered.
Mr. Latimer, thank you. Mr. Bowman, same question to you. Is President Biden limiting the Democratic Party's potential to flip or maintain seats down ballot here in New York or nationwide? Also 60 seconds to you.
The Democratic Party needs to continue to circle the wagons in support of President Biden so that he can win his election in November. It is not on the president by himself. It is on all of us to make the party stronger and specifically focus on bringing out young people and people of color to the polls in record numbers, because those numbers are historically abysmal. Those two areas are a base for me, and that's something I'm going to work towards in November. You know, my opponent mentions being so supportive of President Biden, but the majority of his money comes from right-wing Republicans who support Trump. They are spending more money in this primary than any PAC has ever spent in U.S. history. Why? Because I'm an outspoken person of color. I'm an outspoken black man. I fight against genocide in Gaza, and I fight for justice right here. And his supporters don't want that because it challenges their power. He is siding with big money and power to buy the district
Mr.
from
Bowman,
the people.
Thank you. Give you 30 seconds, Mr. Latimer, to respond to that.
The people who are supporting me are the people that also have financially supported Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democratic Conference. They're the people that have supported Grace Meng and Richie Torres and Adriano Espaillat and Greg Meeks. All of those individuals are Congress members of color. The support that they have and I have from individuals comes because of our support of the state of Israel. His opposition comes because he has been anti-Israel, hostile to Israel, and that is what driven that support. I have never once flipped a position because of a campaign donation, not once. He can explain what he's done with turkey money anytime he'd like to see if he's flipped any positions.
Well, gentlemen, we're going to move on. We're almost out of time.
I don't get a rebuttal.
I'll give you 15 seconds. Go ahead, Mr. Bowman.
Just because you got a few black friends doesn't make you an anti-racist organization. He keeps naming off these black names as if that doesn't make AIPAC and their supporters racist. We have structural racism. We need to deal with that. He's not dealing with that because he's taking big money from those who support racism.
Okay, Mr. Bowman, thank you. We have to get another topic, and Henry has that.
Pretty much our final topic, so let's keep this tight. Your fellow Democrats in Congress, Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jamie Raskin, plan to introduce legislation for more ethical oversight of the Supreme Court. Mr. Bowman, beginning with you, a tight 30 seconds. Do you believe the Supreme Court needs reforming, such as term limits or more justices? 30 seconds.
Yes, we need full democracy reform. Term limits for the Supreme Court justices, ethics reform to hold them accountable when they take money from Republican billionaires like my opponent. We need to expand the Supreme Court because it's the same size it was in the late 1800s. We also need to get rid of the filibuster in the Senate so we could pass real legislation. And we need to look at the Electoral College as well, because we don't have a one-person, one-vote system. We have minority rule in the Senate. So we need full democracy reform so that everyone can have a powerful voice in our Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Latimer, Supreme Court reform, 30 seconds.
Yes, I believe in Supreme Court reform. I'd like to see the bill. I think it makes sense to see the bill since they haven't proposed it officially yet. I certainly believe term limits are warranted. We have term limits on judicial positions in New York State. There's no reason that we shouldn't have term limits at the Supreme Court. As far as expanding the court, be careful for what you ask for, because you could expand the court and wind up having Republicans add those extra seats. So I'd be a little careful before I mess with structural change. But you do need greater ethical oversight of the Supreme Court. And if this bill can accomplish that task, I would hope to support.
Thank you, Mr. Latimer. Dan's bringing us home.
All right. Well, we have reached the end of our debate, gentlemen. So it is time for now for your closing statements. Each of you will get 30 seconds for that. Mr. Bowman, we'll begin with you here.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been an incredible debate. I feel honored to have been a part of it. I have been fighting for the children and families and working class people and marginalized people in this district for the last 20 years. I will continue to fight for the working class and not take big money as I govern in Congress. I work in collaboration with the people, displaying servant leadership, while my opponent is big money in politics personified. He takes billions from right-wing Republicans. He is there to serve them and AIPAC.
Mr. Bowman, thank you. Mr. Latimer, 30 seconds for your closing statement.
People of Westchester County know me over a long period of time, and they've had confidence in sending me to Albany and to White Plains, and they've seen the positive results that I've been able to produce. Mr. Bowman is running a campaign based on campaign donations. He doesn't talk about the wealthy billionaires from California that have funded his campaign. He's pretty silent about that. He's pretty silent about Justice Democrats and what agenda they have for them. Put all of that aside. Who do you trust? Who do you believe has your interests first? I've been endorsed by local active Democrats, by local elected officials, by unions. I'm the person
Mr.
that
Latimer,
you know I can do the most for you in the next 2 years.
Going to leave it there. And gentlemen, that concludes our debate. I want to thank both the candidates for participating here. Henry Rosso for co-moderating with me tonight. Thank you, Henry. And don't forget, everybody, Grace Gomez working on our post-debate show.